Hello, Black Eagles. Welcome back to the Black Eagles podcast. I'm joined today by Italian football expert and host of the Italian football podcast, Nima Tavallaey. Nima, thank you very much for joining us. I hope I pronounced your last name properly there.
Yeah, you did. That was really good.
Okay.
Well done.
Well, of course, we're here to talk about Beşiktaş's brand new marquee striker signing, or at least what we hope to be our new marquee striker, and that is Tammy Abraham. And we're exchanging one Serie A legend for somebody who had a little bit of an off, hit and miss success in Serie A, of course, because of that big injury, probably. But let's talk a little bit about how you see Tammy Abraham, what you think are his strengths and his weaknesses, what do you think he needs to improve. Obviously, coming off of that injury, hopefully he'll be able to return to his former glory. But he hit the ground running when he first arrived in Serie A at AS Roma, scored 17 Serie A goals and then another 9, I believe, in the Conference League when Roma won the Conference League, the first ever Conference League. But then the second season, Nima, things didn't go quite his way. Only 8 goals in Serie A, I believe, and not not a very productive season. What was the big difference, you think, between his first season and his second season? And let's talk a little bit about that.
I mean, it was Mourinho's second season as well, and everything around Roma kind of was weird. It wasn't working. It was, after the first season was great. They won the Conference League, their first European trophy. He did well, but still he did miss a lot, and missed many chances. Should have been above 20 that season. I remember Roma created a lot. They hit the woodwork. He hit the woodwork a million times. And then the next season, everything kind of, the vibe around Roma changed. I think Mourinho was expecting more players to come in that didn't, and Mourinho got annoyed. And then Tammy just wasn't able to use the first season as a launching pad to improve, but instead that turned out to be that his first season turned out to be his peak. And then it was obvious that Roma were looking to sell him back to the Premier League and make money off of it, because he's English. And of course, homegrown, and we know that English players, because of the rules they have in the Premier League, they're very highly rated and worth a lot. So it never happened because of that injury, and Roma have had so many serious knee injuries that it's been a problem. Now it's calmed down over the last one or 2 years, but at that moment in time, I mean, it was the Zaniolo with one ACL in each knee. Tammy, there's lots of players that just kept getting these ridiculous injuries at Roma. And that's kind of how it was, and that was pretty much his Roma tenure over, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. When you talk about him hitting the woodwork very frequently, that really reminds me of Michy Batshuayi. We had him a couple of seasons ago, and he had a similar season, and I think he scored 14 or 15 goals, but he must have hit the woodwork at least 7 times. So sometimes, really, those couple of details can make the difference between having a good season and having a great season. In that regard, 17 league goals in Serie A is certainly nothing to scoff at, but if you hit the woodwork maybe 6 or 7 times, could have been a monster season instead. So do you think that the second season for him, was that mainly down to Roma just not functioning properly? They still got in the top 7, I think, right? They still qualified for Europe.
Yeah.
But it was,
and if I remember, they went to. I mean, they went to the final of the Europa League as well, and they lost on penalties. And Mourinho was furious in that famous in the parking lot, yelling at Anthony Taylor. That was kind of when the whole thing ended, because Mourinho was expecting to win that final. He was expecting that the club was going to go to the Champions League, and then from then on, he was expecting to get a contract extension. And none of that happened. And instead, Mourinho decided to stay with an expiring contract, and everything kind of, that third season really, really went off the rails. But and then of course Mourinho was sacked with only a couple of months left, and then we know what happened. But no, I just think it was one of those situations where he was unable to just improve upon his first season, and Roma weren't in a position where they could invest that kind of money needed to in other areas to help them take that next step. And I think somehow maybe that was, and also with all due respect, I think that was kind of Tammy Abraham's ceiling as well. He's no longer a teenager, and I think that first season at Roma, that was his ceiling. I think that's what we saw.
So then, of course, he gets injured at the end of the 22-23 season. So I think he misses that Europa League final because of it. Because I saw an interview with him, and he mentioned he got injured on the last game of the season. So maybe it wasn't the Europa League final. I'm not sure.
I can't remember. I can't remember exactly how it was, but I do remember him missing most. I think it was. I can't remember, but yeah, I do. He. I mean, yeah. But the point is that that Europa League final was very key for Roma, because had they won that, they would have gone to the Champions League. They would have had the Champions League revenue. Yeah. And I think Mourinho would have gotten an extension, and I think they would have spent more money on the market. And that would have kind of changed things. But it did, that kind of ended it, really, the Mourinho project. And also, the Friedkins had spent a lot of money taking Roma off the stock exchange. Which they spent a lot of money doing that, and they invested a lot in Roma.
They had Lukaku as well. I think last season, right? They had Lukaku.
Yeah, Dybala, Lukaku. You know.
So I mean, last season, obviously, Abraham was coming off of his knee injury. He only returned, I think, in April. Played like 12 games or something. Only scored the 1 goal for Roma. Then went out to Milan this season, but I think still for the most part of the first half, I imagine still kind of careful probably with that knee recovering. But then in the Supercoppa Italia, scoring the winner against your Inter, of course, not a fun memory, I imagine, and also a good run in the cup. 4 goals in the cup in 5 games, but in the league only 3 goals, 5 assists, only 1,100 minutes. A bit of a weird season for Milan as well. In the first half of the season, I think they had Morata. They shipped him off to Galatasaray. Then they brought in Jimenez from Feyenoord. But Tammy Abraham never really managed to get the starting position, at least in the Serie A. What do you think there's a reason for that?
I think Milan were just a mess last season. When they got rid of Fonseca, they brought in Conceição, who plays a completely different style of ball. Then they signed Santi Jimenez for big money, who was someone they've been linked to for a long, long time. And he was always going to be the person who starts. So I think it's mainly due to that. And for them, it was obvious that Tammy Abraham was just alone for the season to make up the numbers. But he did all right. I mean, I wouldn't say he was bad. I wouldn't say he was a huge flop, but it wasn't good. It wasn't bad. It was okay. What he did at Milan. I mean, he did. I mean, I didn't have any expectations as such, and I don't think many people did. He just came on to kind of make up the numbers, be a rotation player, help out when needed, and compete with Luka Jovic for minutes when needed, and that's what he did. And that's it.
Yeah, I think, Luka Jovic probably pushed him to the wayside a little bit in the end, right? What would you say? I mean, we talked about why it didn't work out for him in Italy, I guess. What would you say are his redeeming qualities? What are his key strengths? What do you think make him a player that could potentially be successful in Turkey?
Look, I think it matters also what kind of league it is. Serie A is very tactical, and defenders and teams are very tactically astute, and managers and defenders are really well prepared when you come up against them. And you're not given as much time and space on the ball and in positions as a striker. I mean, Carlos Tevez famously said that the Serie A is university for strikers. If you can make it in the Serie A, you can make it anywhere. And that's what, and I just think that that kind of, it was a level too high for him. I think when you come, I think with all due respect to the Turkish league, it's not as difficult tactically and defensively as the Serie A. I think he will be given chances. I think he will be given more time. I think he will be given more time and space and on the ball in positions. And I think when you give him that, then I think he can actually score quite a few goals.
All right. And what would you say are his strongest suits, like hold up play, something like that? In terms of style wise.
I think he's actually pretty good at holding up the ball and linking up. And he's got, he has of course lost a bit of pace and explosiveness after that injury, but I still think he does have that. And he's a big, strong, physical guy. And is a big presence. So I do think he can, I think he'll cause problems for defenders just by virtue of that. And I think he will. I think he will basically be he will look to be a reference point up top for Beşiktaş, and I think others will play it off him, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, and also to your point, of course, he had a lot of loan spells in the championship. First at Bristol City, he had a really good season with 25 plus goals, and he had a really good season with Aston Villa with 25 plus goals. And then, of course, with Roma, his first season, 27 goals in total in all competitions. He is a player at 27 that has had 3 really productive seasons already. And, of course, the Championship, very different level from Serie A, very different level from the Premier League. But even in the Premier League for Chelsea, he managed to score 18 goals in a season. So he is a player that can score goals and maybe just needs to find his confidence back. Are you surprised that nobody from the Premier League came calling for him, or do you think that Roma's initial asking price was a big problem? Because Beşiktaş apparently tried for him like a couple of weeks ago, but Roma were asking for too much money. But now they were on the deadlines and had to sell apparently for financial fair play reasons. Are you surprised that he ended up going to Turkey instead?
I'm surprised that no one from the Premier League wanted to get him, even if it wasn't the top Premier League sides, because I don't think he's a top Premier League striker, but a top side Premier League striker. I am surprised that not even a mid-table side or a bottom-level side tried to go after him, or not tried to, but didn't manage to get him. That is surprising for me. But equally, I mean, I'm not, it could also be that Tammy wanted to play in European competitions as well, and Beşiktaş will are a team that has that kind of pedigree in Turkey. So I think that's also part of it as well. So I can't say I'm too surprised, but I was kind of expecting a Premier League side to come in for him, and but then again, maybe he felt that he wasn't quite ready to come back to England, and I think he wanted to have one more experience abroad. I think he enjoyed living in Milan, and I think he enjoyed living in Italy, and I think that when Beşiktaş as a top side, one of the big clubs in Istanbul comes calling, it's a nice lifestyle, and it's and also he gets to play. He gets to compete. He gets to be at a club that wants to win the league. He gets to be at a club that wants to that plays in Europe, or has ambitions to play in Europe. And I think that's kind of what decided it. Even though I don't believe a word he said when he said that he used to watch Beşiktaş all the time on the telly, because as far as I'm aware, Turkish football is not broadcast terrestrially everywhere in England. England, when he was growing up,
you can get it. You can get it everywhere, but you need to subscribe, of course, to Digiturk.
Exactly.
But there is actually there.
So I don't buy that he was watching Beşiktaş all the time on the telly. Quote. I don't buy that for 1 second.
Actually, there's I remember this from when he was on loan. I don't know if it was at Aston Villa, but I remember Beşiktaş fans were very excited about him back then, like 7-8 years ago, and they were spamming him with the "Come to Beşiktaş" thing. And I think back then, I think he actually liked those comments or something back then. So he knows the club. I can tell you.
I'm sure he knows the club, but I don't believe that when he was a kid growing up, he was watching Beşiktaş on TV.
Probably not. Probably not,
believe.
unless he was like maybe a big fan of Dembaba or something. Maybe.
Exactly.
But
it's.
Final question.
But I remember that come to Beşiktaş thing was hilarious.
Oh, I got it up here on the screen. I got it on the screen here. Do you see?
It's so good, so good. It's I remember that Cengiz Ünder would start it in there like, come to Beşiktaş. It's like,
not Cengiz Ünder, bro. He never played for us.
No, who was it then? Who was it?
Ricardo Quaresma.
No, not just Quaresma, but it was a Turkish player.
Pepe. A Turkish player? I don't remember.
Yeah, it was a Turkish player that.
I don't remember a Turkish player really being part of the campaign. Really, it focused mainly
I remember because he joined, and then he was the one who then called someone else.
That was Negredo.
No, was it Negredo?
Yeah.
Sure. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember. It was such a long time ago.
It's been almost it's been 7-8 years for sure. Nima, so final question then. Ciro Immobile going back to Serie A after not a great run at Beşiktaş, 19 goals overall, but a lot of penalties, and also I think good start. Scored in the Super Cup straight away on his debut against Galatasaray. Scored 2 actually. Also made a good start to the league. But then got a little injury, and his deficiencies just came up. One of the biggest issues I think we had with Ciro was we didn't have particularly good wingers. We weren't able to feed him good enough. And the problem with Ciro, I think, is you have to feed him over the ground. And that was one of our biggest issues because we played a lot of crosses into the box, but he was never there. He didn't have much of an aerial presence at all, unfortunately. So in that regard, I think Tammy Abraham definitely has a better shot at scoring goals because at least he can win aerials. But Ciro Immobile now heading back to Bologna after a season in Turkey. What do you expect for Ciro?
Look, I think Ciro Immobile, he's a player who I think is... I've always said about him that I think he was unlucky in the sense that he was born in the wrong era.
Yeah.
Because the kind of striker he is, if he was born maybe 5-10 years earlier, the proficiency he has in front of goal, the killer instinct he has in front of goal, would have made him a great. But the number 9 role has changed, and when he had his peak, the number 9 role was a completely different number 9 role, especially at the big clubs, and that's why I think he never really cut it at the biggest clubs. He's not like a prima punta in a 4-3-3 that how you play today. He's not a Haaland, Lukaku, that kind of a striker. He needs to play in a 2-man attack.
Yeah.
And not very many teams play in a 2-man attack. And he, so his entire career, that's why he was so good at Lazio, because when he came to Lazio, he had Simone Inzaghi there, who played with a 2-man attack. And was able to get the best out of Ciro Immobile, and he scored ridiculous amounts of goals. But he is that kind of a striker who needs to have players around him that create space that he can play off of in order to score a lot. I think the reason why he might not also have scored as much at Beşiktaş is also because I think, he was past his peak when he did come to Beşiktaş. Let's be honest about that. And I think all the other things you said as well. But Tammy Abraham is a completely different profile. He is that kind of a striker. He can play as a sole number 9. Ciro Immobile can't. He needs players around him. So I think that's kind of, all of those things together is the reason why I think it didn't really work out for Ciro. But look, I think he comes back to the Serie A. I think it's good that he comes back to the Serie A. It's nice to see him come back to the Serie A. I still think he can score some 10 goals, 5, 10, 15 goals a season. And maybe, before he hangs up his boots.
Well, good luck to Ciro. Thank him for the season he had. It's unfortunate it didn't work out, but it's still nice to have had that name in our history. I think. He's still a cool player. He has done a lot in the last decade or so. Won the Euros with Italy, of course. Won the Golden Boot, and all that kind of stuff. So it's still kind of cool that he's part of our history, even though it didn't work out. At least in my opinion. I think a lot of other Beşiktaş fans won't share that opinion. But he did end up costing the club a lot of money, of course. But good luck to him at Bologna. And thank you very much, Nima. And go check out Nima's podcast, the Italian football podcast. They do some great stuff. You have an interview up with Christian Vieri, I saw.
No, it was last. It was like a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
But yeah, we try to basically what we try to do is to cover Italian football from every angle, meaning that the Monday shows during the season is a review of the weekend. Then we do a midweek show where we cover the Champions League, the Italian teams of the Champions League, and then in between that we have a Q&A as well, where just for patrons. So the Monday show is free for everyone on YouTube and all podcast platforms. And then if you want to be able to ask questions and listen to the Q&A and listen to the midweek review show, then it's for patrons only at patreon.com/TIFP. And it's like $3.99 a month. So yeah.
Very cool. Nima, thank you very much for coming on. And of course, guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And you know what? Go and hit this QR code, hit it up. Join us on WhatsApp in our WhatsApp community. Check out our Patreon as well at patreon.com/Beşiktaş podcast, or hit that join button on YouTube to join, become a channel member and get access to a lot of extra content we do, including the Sinan Schwarting report that's coming up real soon, his monthly report on the ins and outs on business, grading all the players, the staff, and the board. Will Settle Adali get a good score? I think he will, because it's been quite active in the last couple of days. Anyway, thank you for watching. See you all down the road. Bye-bye. Let's go Beşiktaş.